So we are here today at the National Badminton Centre in Milton Keynes.
And we'll be having a look at what a professional badminton player does on a day-to-day basis in their training.
So let's get into it.
So David, why don't you talk us through the exercises that you performed this morning?
Well, we started off doing a variety of different exercises, but it was all based around time. So we would work for 75 seconds and rest for 25 seconds. And I think the idea here, Dean, is working on a quick recovery. If we compared it to Singapore, and please check out our Singapore video, we spoke a lot about the length of sets they were doing out in Singapore. Slightly lower intensity, but longer sets. Here was all about speed, working hard for a small amount of time and doing it repeatedly.
So David, the first exercise that you're doing was a 2P run routine where you're working predominantly on being low in the legs and kind of under pressure, but also being able to get the shuttle away to the back of the court.
Yeah, and I think this is really working on a good skill of staying low, staying in control whilst under pressure, and then having that ability, like you said, Dean, to relieve that pressure. Nice height on the lift, so you can sort of regain that control in yourself and then defend again, and which is a really important skill for all singles players. And lots of twisting and turning. We forget there's so much twisting and turning in badminton, and it's really important to work on that.
And low legs is something definitely we can promote to all our viewers. So sometimes what we see when we're maybe watching the singles at a slight low level is that tendency to come up too tall.
Yeah.
So when our opponent smashes or hits down, actually we don't have the time to get nice and low. So this is a great exercise for you to take home and work on as well.
And then we actually progressed this exercise from having two people side by side to then one at the back, one on the front, which was very much more like a traditional sort of defensive exercise where we very much were lifting a little bit more under less pressure from the net, but more pressure from the back because they're in a better position. And also working on being able to stay low off a clear, because that's one of the other areas we see a lot of mistakes on. People clear and come back quite tall, and actually we've got to get nice and low, ready to defend.
And the third exercise, Dave, it's actually an exercise that we haven't really seen before, so just talk a little bit more about that one.
Yeah, it was sort of a mid-rear exercise, which we should traditionally think of linked to doubles, but actually the idea here was from an overhead, when I'm hitting my overhead shots from the back, I'm working on my variation, different slices, stick smashes, half smashes, and then trying to be aggressive moving forward. That was the predominant focus, and I think in singles we can often lay off a lot. And actually, as we got the levels, drives are a lot more in the game now in singles because people don't want to take the net and give their opponent that chance to get that early spin. So being aggressive and moving forward.
So by observation, what I noticed is David's consistency, particularly at the start of the sessions, was a lot lower than normal, but understandable based on the higher pressure, the higher intensity. But it felt more comfortable as the session went on?
Yeah, it was sort of like, I did used to sort of play and train with these sort of level of players, but that was a long time ago. So it was sort of like I had to really sort of work hard to up my speed, up my concentration, and up my sort of quality to make sure I could really get the most out of this training. And then just to finish, we did a bit of defense training, and very much that was up to us. We could decide what exercise we wanted to do. I wanted to have one player at the back, one player at the front, because I really wanted to work on getting down to slices. I had a lot of issues in the earlier training, really getting down to these soft slices. It's something I struggle with, so I wanted to put myself under pressure for that.
Which is a surprise with your low centre of gravity.
That is correct.
And then David finished the session by playing a few sets of match play, and I think it's fair to say that after having worked very high intensity wise for a while, that maybe the matches started to take their toll physically.
Definitely. I think particularly where at the moment I feel with my game I'm attacking quite well, but I felt because I was fatigued I was losing control of my body a lot, and that was really affecting my attacking shots. Still happy with how I played, but you could really tell that earlier session had really got to me.
So that is the end of David's first session at the National Badminton Centre in Milton Keynes. So I guess, how did you find it?
It's another level. I mean, obviously, if you've followed the road to nationals and what my training's been doing, I've been going through a couple of different centres, training with Dean, training at Loughborough, and this, I mean, we're playing with some of the best players in the country here. The level, the speed, and kind of the consistency is just, you're being pushed every single set, and the physicality is so much more.
As you said, though, we have to remember that this is their job, in effect. These are professional badminton players, and that's kind of why you're here, to see if we can pick up that intensity and that level going into the nationals. I'm so pleased to be joined by Nathan Robertson, one of the coaches here at the National Badminton Centre. Obviously worked very closely with Ben Lane and Sean Bendy. Yeah. How are they looking at the minute, please, their performances?
We've just come back from a good trip to Malaysia and India, where we beat 2 top 10 pairs, so that was successful, and generally coming off their best year of their careers so far last year with 2 World Tour titles. So yeah, a good year, but we're always looking to progress and go a bit further.
And All England obviously coming up, and as you said, they have the potential to beat a lot of the top pairs. What do they need to do to be able to do it round after round in that tournament?
Yeah, I mean, we've beaten every pair bar one in the top 20, so we know we have the quality. The All England is a big goal. We've played well there before, but not got deep into the tournament. I think it's just a maturity and a consistency that they need, and they're getting it. So for me, it's not a case of if they'll do it, it's when they'll do it. I'm very hopeful about this year.
They're very exciting to watch, that's for sure. And obviously looking around today, very young squads that you have, so exciting times for the future?
Yeah, exciting times. Like you say, it's a young squad. A lot of them should be coming into the age where we're looking to get onto the World Tour. So a lot of them are playing in and around Europe competitions at the moment, but we're looking for them to take a big step this year. And so at the moment, if we have 5 or 6 on the World Tour, I'd be hoping that number is maybe doubled by the end of the year.
Nice. And from a personal perspective, obviously played at extremely high level yourself. The move into coaching, was that something that you found quite easy or quite challenging?
It's definitely challenging because it's very different from playing. It's a different mindset. I think when you're a player, you can be really selfish and take everything to self, and when you're a coach, you've got to give everything. But there's a lot to be passed along from player to coach, and I think the challenge has come that when you get to a certain level, especially at the very top, a lot of it comes down to psychology, which is something that I got taught a lot from my former coaches. So I'm passing it on and then adding a little bit of my own stuff to that. So yeah,
great.
Well, we're here with Nadeem, who's ranked 180 in the world in men's singles. Nadeem, you've been at National Centre now for 2 years. Yep. How have you been finding it?
No, it's really enjoyable. Definitely a big transition from my sort of junior career when I was playing at sort of club level to coming full-time here at the National Centre. But yeah, it's been really enjoyable.
And what have you found when you're transitioning from junior to senior badminton, particularly in singles?
Yeah.
How have you found that transition?
I think it's been tough. Physicality has probably been the biggest thing for me. You see a lot of the junior badminton players, it's not weak, but the step up to the seniors is they're so strong. The foundation is unbelievable, and everyone, from 500 in the world upwards is just so ridiculously physical. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people forget about. They think about, it's better shots, harder smashes, better movement, but actually it's the physicality of the game. It's just so much higher when you're doing that transition to senior level.
Yeah.
And now, what's the goal for you going forward?
I think the next big steps for me is hopefully I can break into that top 100 club. I think Harry's managed to do it since Toby, but obviously I'd like to get my name in that club, and then slowly work up to maybe around 60 in the world and 50 in the world. But then ultimately I think the end goal for most badminton players is the Olympics. So definitely we'll be eyeing up the 2028 Olympics, I think. That's my end goal.
Amazing, what a fantastic goal.
So David, talk us through the afternoon session.
We started a nice little drill called 20-20-12-12, which is basically you're working on a technicality of a shot, how to hit a certain shot, and then slowly incorporating it into disguising your other shots, and then eventually shot combos. So you're learning to play that shot off a different shot, which is a really nice one. I was working on my reverse slice because I've struggled with it for a bit, but a nice way to start the session.
And then David, you then moved on for some more matches. How did you find that compared to the morning session?
Well, I think this sort of shows the difference between sort of kind of training at the National Centre a lot and not the amount of impact my body had earlier in the day. Like, I started these matches and felt very lethargic already before I'd even played. Getting quite sore feet from all the pushing around. So yeah, it was a real sort of struggle this afternoon, but that's part of it. That's part of that. I've done 4 hours in one day, which I'd normally do almost across 2 weeks. So it's just a kind of a reminding me how hard these guys train, really.
So delighted to be joined by George Bevan, one of the singles coaches here at the National Badminton Centre. Just a couple of questions for you, George. Morning session that we had this morning, what exactly was kind of the focus, and what were you looking for the players to get out of that session?
Okay, so we did a 2v1 golden hour this morning with doubles and singles together. Really good for the singles players from my point of view. A lot of speed in the mid-court, and there's a few specific exercises where I'm looking for them to be brave, stepping up the court and almost taking on the forecourt, being a bit more aggressive. Yeah.
So George, obviously Monday today, and the players have had a little bit of a rest over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Does that have an impact on when you're planning the training, the fact that their bodies have maybe come into a little bit of a state of relaxation over the weekend? Yeah, it does. And I think we do have the ability to tailor it. For example, there's other courts we can use if they're not fresh and ready to do the 2v1 session. But what's good about the 2v1 is that they're familiar with the exercises, so they can kind of use it as a real good start to the week. And those who are well rested, it's quite nice. We're talking about the physicality. We want players who walk into the hall and see this type of session to be a little bit like intimidated by the physicality of the session, and we're starting to achieve that. Yeah. One thing we're starting to use, or get quite good at using, the catapult numbers, the loading data. So we're getting a really good measure of their accelerations and how much load's going through their body. And because the Monday morning session is quite consistent, the work to rest ratios, it's quite nice to see the progress that players are making with the numbers. And we're reviewing that quite well now. Yeah. And finally, George, it was quite clear that you have quite a young squad with you currently. And what are we looking at in how they transition from kind of top juniors to break into that senior play? Because obviously a very, very difficult task.
Yeah. We have some young players who have got the opportunity to train near to full time, homeschooled, and I think the important thing right now is that they're developing the habits within the off-court strength and conditioning, physiotherapy support, preparing their bodies for the what we want is quality on court, not just the quantity. So we're gradually increasing the volume of training so that they can get stronger, withstand the demands without breaking. And if they do that for prolonged periods, we'll see that they will develop the physicality needed for the game at senior level eventually. But if we go too quick too soon, it's just too hard to stay injury-free.
And that concludes our day of training at the National Badminton Centre with the England squad.
It's been fantastic just getting to train amongst them again. They all train so hard here, and we're going to be keeping an eye on their results going forward.